here was the... Okay, so we finished cutting the flip and all the flip detailing in the sides. We had to cut obviously from the sides to access this area, which would not have been accessible cutting straight down. Alright, so you may notice that little pip in the middle there when we're cutting the flip. That's a little indexing cone or pyramid or whatever it is you want to call it. Essentially what I do is I use Mac. Wow, focus. I use Mac and my jog dial, and I literally, I don't know if I'm going to be able to focus on this or not. No, got something behind there. There. I bring the tip of the cutter right down onto the tip of that cone in X, get them lined up as straight as I can. It's a little difficult to see. Whoa, focus. Alright. That's looking a little bit out to me actually. No, actually it's not. Okay, so that's looking a long X at the tip of the cutter to the tip of the cone, and then you need to do the same thing obviously along Y. Along Y. You've got to look along Y, but you have to adjust the straightness along A so that, let's put something behind there, so that essentially you get your A and your X lined up for this. Y has to be on 0 at this stage, because otherwise you're going to have real problems. Now, our prototype, this young fella here, it was completely done, and he had a little problem in that, in my excitement, I forgot to lock down my rotary tight enough, and the first place it hit some resistance up here, the model actually stopped moving, the whole thing stopped moving, but the cut carried on going, so I ended up cutting the bottom of the shank out of the top of my ring because it stopped right up in the middle there. So hopefully this time we're gonna have a little bit more joy than that. Just remember, professionals call it prototyping. It wasn't a balls up, it was a prototype. It was testing how not to do it. Okay, so once you've lined up that tip, the tip of the cutter and the tip of that cone, you can pop into your Mac and you can zero out your X and you can zero out your A. Alright, then we're just going to load the toolpath, load G-code, where are we? Load up the rotary toolpath. Give it a tick to load, it's a 15 meg toolpath. Go on, go on. Alright, so then essentially all we're going to do is just pick Z up and let it rip. So I think that's estimated to run for 4 hours. Alright, we're loaded, so I'm going to just pull Z up, fire up my spindle, and let her rip. Hit cycle start on my mouse. Boom. So essentially what that's going to do is going to roll over to the bottom of the shank. And of course at this point all my blockers over the fine detail are in, so my cutter's not going to touch them. I need to try and make up a bit of time on this job, so I'm going to crank the speed up on it once I'm sure that it's running well. And focus. As you can see, essentially it's just going in there and cleaning up the shank. Right. So that's going to run all the way around, and I'm going to crank that Betty up a little bit in speed, and I'll show you some video that when it's done. Okay, so this has come around a fair bit from the bottom there. It's working its way up around, and what it's doing for me, because I'm a bit lazy, but it's just filed this I suppose, it's cutting off all the included angle at the bottom of the shank, left from having cut it sideways with a tapered cutter. What it's also doing, it's getting in those little corners and cleaning them up for me. And you'll notice, I'm going to try and grab it from the side if I can. You'll notice that the cutter is skipping over the balls, because when this path was written, there was a blocker in there. So the cutter won't go in or damage the fine detail that was cut in the flip section of this job. So that was the reasoning behind having done that in that sort of fashion. Okay, so this is about an hour into this, so I'm looking at probably like 2 hours down the track, maybe 2.5 hours. This will be finished and we'll start doing some indexing. I'll try and grab some video of that too. Okay, so at just under 2 hours into it, we've come all the way around, and of course the piece was dusted before we started, so you can see where it didn't touch. There's obviously anywhere where there were blockers it didn't touch, and notable because quite a few people ask me this from time to time. They'll say to me, oh, you know, when I do a flip followed by rotary, I get this little area like this here. You see this thin little edge here where there's still dusting on the wax? It should have been cut away and wasn't. And they're saying to me, what's going on there? Have I got a rotary misalignment? Is my rotary maybe eccentric? It's not turning true? No, neither of those. What that actually is a tool issue. The tapered cutter is supposed to be 15 degrees, and in all likelihood it's 15.5 or maybe even 16 degrees. So what happens is on the flip, it's cutting away a little bit more on that edge than what the path is allowing for. So when we come to do the rotary, that shows. I allow in my tool setups for about a half a degree error, so I set up my 15 degrees as 15.5 degree. So this cutter is actually probably a lot worse than that. It's probably 16 to 16.5 degrees out, but because I've made an allowance for it in my tool setups, the error is minimized. So a handy little tip to stop yourself getting these sort of problems. What's got to still happen now is you can see the lip over here, which was the side panel blocker. When it's finished doing this full rotary, going right around back up to that side over there, it's going to come back in, because this has been done at quite low resolution, about 50 micron step over. When it comes in on these side panels, for these two on the sides, this one here and that one there, it's going to come in at 20 micron, and the top panel, it's going to come in at 10 micron step over. So when those come up, I'll come grab a bit of video once there's something worth seeing, maybe halfway through the side index or something like that. Okay, so come up on the end of the full rotary pass, and it's going to start indexing the side panels now. Okay, well, so maybe it wasn't quite as close to the end of the rotary pass as I hoped. Come on, hurry up. Up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. A little bit under the tick. I could just pause the video, but why should I be the only person to sit there watching this dreadfully tedious thing go up and down and up and down and up and drive me out of my bloody mind. Come on, get finished. There we go. That should be that. Okay, alright, okay. We're going to go around the second time. What's going on with you? Come on. Okay, so the deal now is going to go around and come in and do, because all of this is done at about 50 micron step over, and as you can tell it's pretty clean finish, but it's not quite good enough for doing the very fine detail areas like this. So as you can tell, there's still a blocker there at the moment. He's going to actually cut through that blocker now and cut the detail. Alright, so I'm going to let that be. And when we get into the enough detail to actually see something, I'll come and shoot a bit more good. Up and down, and up and down, and up and down. I found a ball. Anyway.